Welcome back everyone. Welcome to our continuing series on how to install our Vistafolia products. Today I'm going to show you how to put the panels onto the fixings we already put on the wall in the last video. Now, it's all very simple and straightforward. Basically taking your panel out of the box. And we know we've got our panel A from the tag we got here. The fixing points we're looking for are 100mm in or 4 inches in, 100mm 4 inches down on every corner. And basically, I'm right-handed, so I basically just spread that foliage apart just a little bit, poke my fingers through. I can now pick up the panel quite happily in one hand. 7 kilos or 15 and a half pounds. Now that hand is aiming for this point on the wall. That fixing's got a bit of tolerance in it, like I showed you earlier, so you can quite easily line that panel up with that cross on that fixing. Now once I put the little cap screw on, I just put it on loosely. That panel will hold its own weight on the wall now. Now I can go around and line up the rest of the fixings with the correct spots on my wall. So it's 100mm in, 100mm down. It does get a little bit fiddly sometimes, but perseverance is key. And that cap screw just goes over the top, then down onto the bottom ones. And once you've got all your fixings on, just go around and tighten them up so that panel's nice and secure. You don't want these panels bouncing on the fixings. And you'll see that once the fixings are in place, how secure these panels are. Doesn't take long, a couple of minutes per panel and you're done. Because all the foliage is held on the horizontal bars on the frames, you can just slide the foliage back and all those fixings just disappear. And I'll continue to do that on the next few panels. This is panel B. I'll line it up with that fixing up there. If you always get that top fixing on first, it just means the panel can't fall off and drop on you while you're trying to line up the other ones. One, two. Now, once I've got this fixing in, I'll show you why we'll leave the 20mm gap between the panels as well. So that 20mm gap you saw in the previous video about the positions between the fixings. And so at this point, there's just enough room to get your finger between the panels and tease out any foliage which you may have flattened by putting the panel on top of this one here. That's nice and simple, and that will make sure you don't get any horizontal lines in your installations because you've been crushing foliage. Once you've done that, you can go around and get that next fixing in. So tease the foliage apart. All our packaging from Vistafolia is fully recyclable, so any packaging with your boxes and so forth should be able to go straight into your household recycling. And again, same when we had that vertical join there. Sorry, horizontal join, we've now got the vertical join. And that 20mm gap between the panel. Again, just so you can get in there and prise out any foliage that you may have trapped between the panels, like you can actually just see here. Just spread that apart and make sure there's no vertical joins. And that's now, so you say your first 4 panels on the wall. This is probably the most important part of when you're doing these walls is, like we saw when they come out of the box, the foliage is very flat. And obviously the wall doesn't look that great in this state, so what we need to do is to just gently tease the foliage down, so bend and manipulate these plants down. Every plant has a small wire frame inside of it, so you can adjust the shape of these plants if you so desire. Some of the plants, the frame ends short, so there's this nice movable piece here. So on the plants, you don't want to grab and pull on the tips or you may damage the foliage, but you can just get your hands in there and bend and manipulate the foliage down. And again, it doesn't take long and the transformation is quick, effective, and looks really, really good. And you just keep going until you've done all of it. And you very quickly see how quickly these panels change shape. Just give it all a bit of a nudge. Just so you're making sure there's no flat spots in it. It's quite easy. You can just get your fingers in from the top, push down. I recommend wearing gloves for these things because there are small metal frames inside of each plant. So just for your own safety, just make sure you're wearing a pair of gloves. You can see how sort of hardy this stuff is. I'm not exactly being kind to it. Yeah, it takes more of a beating than most plants would, but and just give it all a bit of a rub, make sure there's no loose foliage in there. Everything's hand assembled, so you may find the odd bit of foliage drops off. I wouldn't be concerned about this. It's never been a concern in the past. We overpopulate our plants with extra foliage because we have to account for human error in the assembly process. But as you can see, it doesn't take long to change those panels from sort of flat and lifeless to something that looks quite spectacular. You can also get very creative with the way you bend these plants out. They are quite large, so depending on how much space you've got to play with, you can bend them all the way out, or you can leave them sort of slightly up, like they're sort of growing towards the light. There's no right or wrong way, but just be sure that you do manipulate and ruffle that foliage down. Make sure the fixings are all covered up as well as you go. And when you're done, you can imagine as that scale of that wall gets bigger and bigger, you're going to have something that really is quite amazing. Right, so thanks for tuning in on our video on how to get the panels on the wall and how to sort of bend and manipulate that foliage out. Be sure to tune into the next video in the series on how to cut panels. On this particular wall we do have a cut to make on the end there, so I'll be showing how to do that in the next video. Feel free to check out our website vistafolia.com and hope to see you next time. Thanks.